And we are back with episode 2 of season 2 of BCCC Talks. I'm your host, Charlie Moore, and today we have a pretty dear episode to me. This is our Black History Month episode with an academic coach here at the college, Mrs. Susie Jackson. I will jump straight into the interview, but for now, we have our announcements. Interested in transferring to a 4-year university in the fall? Well, this spring 2022, we're having all kinds of transfer visits from ECU, Elizabeth City State, UNCW, and we also have Wesleyan Wednesdays. People from ECU will be here on March 3rd and March 7th. People from Elizabeth City will be here March 15th and April 19th. And people from UNC Wilmington will be here March 1st. All of these will take place in Building 1, Room 113. And for the Wesleyan Wednesdays, Miss Joy Smallwood will be here every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Building 3, Office 123. So I'm here with Miss Susie Jackson. How you doing today, Miss Jackson?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Oh, I'm glad you're doing well. This is the Black History Month episode, and I wanted to get your perspective on what Black History Month meant to you with all the history that we have and things like that. What does Black History Month mean to you?
Oh my. I'm always very impressed and very pleased that there's Black History Month.
Yes.
Because I can remember a time when it wasn't important enough. We didn't feel like we were important enough to have a full month
Yes, ma'am.
Black History, but now we do.
Mm-hmm.
Back to your question, Black History Month is very important in my life because I can remember.
Yeah.
I can remember, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Speaking of remembering, being Black and Black history, there wasn't always a time where things were necessarily equal or they looked up. But what was a time where something got accomplished and you were like, wow, like there's hope for people that look like me, and people that look like me have a chance out here? What was one of those times?
Oh my, you're asking a loaded question there, because in my family, I was the very first to get a college,
really,
4-year college education degree. So I can remember back, honest to goodness, I can remember when I was little, very young, going to the Turner's Theater and having to go upstairs because that was the colored section.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember the Woolworth's lunch counter where we were not allowed to go and sit down and eat. I remember the signs colored only.
And I remember you were speaking on how you had the colored water fountains and the colors only. And when you see stuff like that, say maybe like in the movies, like maybe the movie Hidden Figures has scenes where they have colored only. When you see stuff like that, does it make you think back and reminisce on, because you actually lived through those times that are being portrayed in the movies?
I think back on those times often now, because now know that this was not when I was grown. I was very young.
Yeah, okay.
I was young at that time. I'm not that old.
No, Ms. Jackson, you're not that old.
Yes, but it brings me back to those times, and even now, the Black Lives Matter movement, all of these movements that have occurred takes me back to the 1967, 68, 69. That was during the integration of schools in North Carolina, this area in eastern North Carolina. In fact, when I was a junior in high school, was the first year or was I a senior? Was the first year that we were integrated. Then I went to not P.S. Jones, but Washington High School.
Washington High. Yes, ma'am.
So yes, it does take me back, and no, those weren't the good old times for me.
Oh. And you letting me know that you were young, but with you being young back then, is there anybody you can think of back then where you wanted to be like, whether it was an activist or just a lady you seen every day, but when you were younger, who did you want to aspire to be?
I'm telling you, the people that really influenced me, and that's probably why I went into education as I did, were my teachers, O'Farrahs, Mr. and Mrs. William T. O'Farrah. They live in Washington. The O'Farrahs, let's see, the Harrises, Randolphs. Mr. Randolph, Mr. Leon Randolph was principal of Mineola when I went to Mineola. So I kind of looked up to my teachers. And that's why I said, I preface this with saying that these were, to me, some of the finest educators in North Carolina.
Yes. And
so I looked up to my teachers.
Yes, and them making you want to become an educator speaks volumes of them, because I hear nothing but good things about you when it comes to being an academic coach and things like that. But I did want to ask, like, you can think back on how things were back then, but let's jump ahead in the future, maybe like 20, 30 years from now. And the things that are happening to this day, sooner or later, it's going to be history to people that are younger than me, the generation under me. And do you think things that are happening today will influence the younger generation the way things that happened years ago influenced my generation and your generation?
Yes, I do. I do. I have said many times that the young people of today, they're made of different stuff than we were made. And I just don't think that they're going to be satisfied with the status quo as it has been for the last eons of years.
Yes. And then you take somebody like, say, I know you probably familiar with Colin Kaepernick.
Yes, I am.
Yes, Colin, to a kid that's born 20 years from now, he's going to be history, but he's going to be looked at in such a different way. Like, I remember watching Colin Kaepernick play football, but to a kid that's born 30 years later, he's only going to know Colin Kaepernick as an activist for
taking
black
the knee.
people, taking the knee. And I think that's the difference, and that's not necessarily a disconnect, but that's what's going to happen between my era and the era under me. And I don't even think it's a bad thing. I think Colin Kaepernick was a good football player.
It's funny, strange you should bring up his name. I watched a movie. There's a movie about Colin Kaepernick, and I watched it, and I had to, not that I thought of him as anything less before, but I had to admire his tenacity. I had to admire the fact that he was sticking to his guns. This is what he truly believed.
Yes, and you would say in closing, would you say that the ways of the world and the ways of integrating society, they're heading in the right direction?
Not necessarily. I think the wheels are turning so slowly, and I have come to the conclusion in many ways that squeaky wheel, the minority of people, are getting the most attention. Those people who are just too far to the right for me are getting the most attention, and I'm not going to call any names because that is not what we need to do here. But yes, I don't know that. I know that as far as the Me Too movement, the Black Lives movement, they've made some strides, but they're quiet now. And I fear that if they do not keep on making the wheel squeaky, that they're going to fade out.
Oh, so it's not necessarily that they're not taking the steps, but it's just they're not moving at a rapid enough pace.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Ms. Jackson, I appreciate you sitting down with me and giving me all this great knowledge and wisdom on Black history. If there's anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think I've said it all.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I appreciate
No, I haven't. There are many things that I could say, but I'm going to stop it here.
Oh, well, I appreciate you sitting down with me. This was truly a great opportunity for me to sit down and learn more about Black history. This is Charlie Moore for BCCC Talks, and we out.